Welcome back to the Warcraft news, everyone. If it still is Saturday, it's actually your last day to pick up the faction crest back pieces that come from the trading post. Basically, if you don't do it today, your only other opportunity is probably going to be on the in-game store. Also, this month has got an extra long bar, so you can get a little bit more Trader's Tender if you complete that. And do remember, the class sets are on the post as well now. They've actually had their class restrictions moved. And on the topic of cosmetics, I've actually got a new Warcraft one from today's sponsor. I've actually got a pretty cool Warcraft thing. So these are the U2's ex-Blizzard collab, and they've actually sent me early prototypes for their Villains collection, where we've got Lich King, Illidan, Deathwing, and 2 Murloc plushies. They're pretty damn lovely, and they're cooking up more for 2025. And I've got to admit, looking in at Illidan, this dude's some mighty quality. It's a clearly defined line, strong use of detail and color, and, well, I'm going to put my phone up close. Look how flippin' ripped Illidan is. So, yeah, goals. So here's the deal, right? U2s do limited brand collabs. They're just a cut above the rest in terms of quality, and they just dropped their Villains line for Warcraft on the site. Now, they have given me a 5% off code to pass over to you guys. It's u2s.com/Bellular. Head there, use the code Bellular, and you'll get 5% off your orders. Now, we've got the Murloc plushies and the Villains that have just dropped today, but you'll also see when you're there, well, you got heroes like Anduin, Alexstrasza, and Thrall. You've also got Alexstrasza and the dragon forms of her and Nosdormu, which are pretty damn cool as well. So, go check them out, get 5% off with my code, and a big thanks to them for sponsoring. Our first story today is kind of crazy. I expected nothing to happen on account of it being Thanksgiving, but now people are giving thanks that Serial Mythic Plus levers are actually being banned from the game, which is pretty good timing. Our big Mythic Plus video actually drops tomorrow, and members, it's on our site right now. Anyway, everybody assumed this was a targeted response from Blizzard to the plague of players who just drop out of a Mythic Plus run at the very first sign of trouble. Basically, the people who see a few missed interrupts or some little whoopsie, assume the worst, and maybe after one death, just rage quit from the dungeon, which absolutely blows. It wastes everybody's time. Of course, this caused loads of havoc because those people then, well, jumped to their own defense across the forums and Reddit, basically saying, hey, if people actually mess up, interrupt at the very first opportunity, or make a silly mistake, why waste my time if I don't think we're going to clear the dungeon? They basically just say the only correct thing to do is to just abandon the doomed run and try to get a successful run later on. And I guess if you think about it, it's all kind of like the prisoner's dilemma. Do you trust in your fellow players to make the safest personal decision? Those people, of course, were just butting heads with the optimists who basically say, yeah, you should trust the other players. It's a cooperative game, and let's try to stick out our dungeons to the end. But then there's the third group of people, the people who collectively agreed to disband because things aren't going well, so they leave naturally. And there were fears that even those people could be caught in this ban. It does turn out that those fears were actually mislaid, because Blizzard's announcement said that this is specified for griefers, basically people who will just intentionally leave, quote, a great many keys who, quote, repeatedly and recklessly disrupted Mythic Plus groups. Basically, not the occasional leaver, just the people who are undoubtedly trolling. So that's probably a good thing, and I should say, those fears were misled on paper. Obviously, not everybody's got the biggest trust in Blizzard's detection methods here. There could be some false positives, so who really knows? We'll see how it shakes out, but at the very least, a bunch of Gigatroll leavers who have just wasted countless hours of people's time, well, I think them being gone is something to give thanks for. The next story then, right? A quick update to Plunderstorm. Basically, the dates have shifted around on the PTR's calendar, and sadly, it's kind of bad news. It's going to be January 14th to February 18th, which is a little bit later than I thought. I just say that because I love Plunderstorm. Anyway, we know that it's going to take 6 weeks to max out the ring from patch 11.0.7, so it basically seems like you'll max out the ring, you'll finish up the Siren Isle, and then it will be time for Plunderstorm, and after Plunderstorm, we'll be doing the Undermine patch. But that's all in the future, and I've got some news you can actually make use of now. Peter Yu's amazing add-on called Plumber has actually got a new feature here. It's called Target Spellcasting Info, and it is sick. So, if your target is casting a spell, you can now mouse over, right, to get the tooltip and see what the spell does. And better yet, if you right-click on that enemy, you can check all of the spells that you've seen that enemy cast. And to say that this is massive is honestly a bit of an understatement, right? Because the dungeon journal is great, but it's only got bosses. There are times where you want to know what a mob does. Here, you can just right-click and actually find out what the spells are without having to look up any external resources. It's absolutely amazing. Now, this feature is turned off by default, so you'll need to update your add-on, flip it on in the settings, but man, I massively recommend it. And next, a bit of a question for you. Do you bother upgrading your heirlooms? So this Reddit post asked that, and it sparked a bit of a thought. With the speed of leveling and how expensive the upgrade items are actually getting in the game, heirlooms make no sense. They're obviously due a rework. Now, they've been nerfed enough over time that they're often reportedly worse than questing greens, but they still feel necessary kind of because your leveling rapidly outpaces your gearing. You're actually leveling so fast you're barely even picking up bits for your character, which is why this transmog gear ends up being used by people, even though it's really not that rewarding feeling. It's a bit strange, and this will be low on Blizzard's list of priorities, but honestly, the feedback is completely warranted, so I thought I'd bring it up here. Blizzard, come on, do something with the heirlooms. It would make a lot of sense. Anyway, next, yeah, it's lore time. It is big lore time. We may do a full video on this, but basically here's what's going on. Since Wrath of the Lich King, we've known that the great benevolent Titans weren't all they're cracked up to be. Now, there are some players who will basically say, what? The Titans are bad now. Oh dear, the devs have all gone woke. Do you remember Algalon the Observer in Wrath of the Lich King? Well, I was there. His whole point is he was going to end all life on the planet because it didn't fit the Titans' plan. To say that Titan-aligned beings could do not particularly good things has been in the game for a long time. Anyway, that's all taken a little bit of time to come full circle, and now it really has. And to put it bluntly, damn the Titans is not the sort of line you would expect an Earthen to come out with. Here's what's going on. In the 5th and perhaps final Titan Archive disc, Arcadis actually goes off script, right? Now, we previously learned, and there's full lore videos on these, that the close exposure, right, to Azeroth's World Soul turned the Earthen into Thragar, which were basically these diamond beings like Magni Bronzebeard. Now, those Thragar rebelled in Azeroth's name way back in the day. Now, when they rebelled, they tried to destroy the world core that they were building around her. They fought the Titan forces. Well, this week, we basically found out what happened. Rather unsurprisingly, Aman'Thul, leader of the Titans, ordered them all to be killed, and worse yet, he then devised a way to stop Azeroth making more Thragar, and that way is the Archive. Basically, the reason the Earthen drop their memories in the Archive and then they sort of get refreshed at the Awakening Machine, you know, that fun weekly event we all love doing so much, well, that's because the process purges the World Soul essence from the Earthen. So the reason why the Earthen don't remember things is, basically because the big man, Aman'Thul, set it up that way. The edicts were then hard-coded as a permanent failsafe. You know those giant, like, offshore death robots that we fight in our weekly world quests? Yeah, those are all there in case the edicts were broken so that all of the Earthen could be destroyed. Now, Arcadis says that the Titans declared the World Soul safe, right? They say it's dreaming within the world core, that no harm will come to it. And then he muses on why he even recorded this information. Why would he risk its discovery? And that's the kind of interesting thing. He sort of suggests that maybe he is being influenced. So it's that thing where he is a being that, of course, will have edicts, right? But he's actually beginning to go a little bit off-piste. And this is setting him up, right, as so many other parts of the story has, as a potential great ally of Azeroth amongst the Titan Keepers. Basically a guy that we can rely on to back us up, back Azeroth up against Aman'Thul when push comes to shove, almost certainly along with Tyr, who, you know, we basically saved and all of that jazz during the Dragonflight expansion. So Dagran and Brinth obviously don't take this news particularly lightly. It's basically everything you thought was true was not true. I mean, we players had a suspicion, but yeah, they obviously didn't. Dagran then wonders if any of Azeroth's written history is true, and Brinth basically just rages at the betrayal, right? Realizing that they were just unwitting slaves. Her final line is a resounding, "Damn the Titans." And Dagran goes to plant some questions in our heads. And here they are. 1. What if there's more to the World Soul, and the Titans plan for it than we were led to believe? 2. What if even Arcadis was deceived? And you can see what's actually going on here. The seeds are planted for the Aman'Thul showdown in The Last Titan. If you're wondering what the final boss of that expansion is, come on, it's gotta be Aman'Thul. Or maybe even a Ridicron if he ends up just being that much of a Chad. Anyway, the gate has been opened here for us to learn so much more about how, well, our world isn't a prison itself, but it was sort of popped in one. All fascinating, and it helps us understand Ridicron's betrayal when he comes back to the story. And you know what? It even helps us understand Sargeras' stab. in a completely new light, especially since we canonically know that, at the time, he was infatuated with Azeroth. All fairly interesting. The last thing then is that December is almost upon us, so Christmas aside, that does mean there's a new trading post, and this month it is cool as ice, in Blizzard's words, not mine, that's the name of it. Anyway, the highlight this month is these really nice Alliance and Horde themed earmuffs, so that's pretty neat. The monthly reward is a purple Murloc onesie, and the other rewards are things like a purple magical fox, blue butterfly wings, and a Christmas themed weapon, but oddly enough, Blizzard have also announced something for February, which is a bit weird, but hey, I'll take it. What they said is they'll be celebrating the second anniversary of the trading post by doing another extra long progress bar that will let people earn another 500 tender. Still feels a bit stingy, but I'll take it. Anyway, keep that in your planning, and speaking of plans, you should plan to watch this next. We checked up on the War Within's health using all of the data and probes that we had on hand.